All right, I think it's time to start. I was going to say, nice to see you, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't actually see any ladies here, so nice to see you, gentlemen. My name is Petteri Holländer. I come from the Qt company. I'm the head of product management in the Qt company. And if you don't hear me, please wave your hand or something like that, so I know that everything's going okay. Today you're in the business track room, so if you didn't know, we have a bunch of nice talks here today and tomorrow. And my subject of investing is actually related to many of these. So the other talks are talking about total cost of ownership and investing into competence development and the time to market and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to hearing these other talks here as well today. But first, let's take a brief poll on who do we have actually in the room. How many of you feel that you're in the software industry? Show of hands. 90%, 95%. Anybody who's not? Okay, we have a brave soul here. Okay, good. Okay. How many of you are actually doing investment decisions in your company? Okay, so most of you are actually. Okay, that's good. So about investing into software technologies overall, I have divided the subject now into 3 different categories. So the strategic side of things, the tactical side, and the operational side. And of course, in any business, and especially when you're talking about investment, risk management is a key thing there. You need to be aware of what is it that you're doing, what kind of effects that you will have when you're doing the decisions that you're doing going forward. So if we first look at the strategic side of things, so of course the business model of your company will be the driving force of everything. You know, if you are on a consumer business, it most probably is a lot different than you're in a B2B business. If you are selling directly to your customers versus having a sales channel and so forth. So that dictates a lot of what is it that you can do. And then of course the overall investment time frame. So if you are in a situation where your window of opportunity is actually from today to next 12 to 18 months, you're doing very different decisions than if your window of opportunity actually starts opening like 2 years from now and then will be open for the next 10 to 15 years. So you need to take into account that, okay, what effects does the window of opportunity have to your decisions. And then of course the risk profile, what is it that you're doing? For example, if you're in the medical device space, you might want to take into use technologies that have been tried and proven in the industry with other companies for quite a few years before actually taking those things into use. On the other hand, if you are creating medical devices, there will be some items there that you will be actually creating anew. You will be doing something that nobody else has done before. So you need to balance on those things, that what items, what components do you actually have that will be tried and proven, and which components you will be taking more risk on. Then the decision to build or buy. Of course, this is present in almost all decisions that you make on investing into things. So having the opportunity to buy, I think, is something that we have much more today than we used to have. If you look at 20 years ago, you needed to build more yourself. Today, you can have off-the-shelf components, all kinds of things, but still you need to figure out what's the competitive advantage that you're getting into. What is it that you actually need to build yourself? Then recognizing the core competence within the company, I think this is also very important. Coming from a technology point of view, it's usually easy to say that, okay, the technology issues are the core competence of the company, but many times actually sales and marketing will be the core items of your company. especially if you're in a situation where you're entering a market that is more or less mature, and you need to have some elbowing on the marketing and sales side to actually take your place in the market. And then resource usage. Of course, it's a bit different if you have a huge pile of cash that you can spend beforehand, if you compare to the fact that you have a small pile of cash and you need to live with the cash flow going forward. So how do you balance the resources with the window of opportunity going forward? Then on the tactical side, I've listed 4 items here. So ecosystem first. So that's something that you need to figure out. What kind of ecosystem do you need to build if you need to build anything? Can you buy into some ecosystem? Can you take an existing ecosystem and tap to it and make sure that your company can benefit from that? Or if you are creating some new groundbreaking technology, do you need to start building a partnership network around you? Do you need to start engaging subcontractors so that they actually pick up your technology and therefore expands the overall ecosystem, the awareness of what is it that you're doing and the capabilities that you can develop further. Then on the competence development side, this is going to be important as well to recognize the window of opportunity. So if you're actually working on a very short window of opportunity, you don't actually have too much time to develop your competence. You need to hire, you need to get the people who actually know things already. Then on the other side, if you have the window of opportunity is longer and you're maybe a bit short on resources, you might want to be hiring straight from the university and training people and getting more bang for the buck through that kind of approach. And then on the software side, always important items, licensing, patents, which are interrelated in a way as well. So the patents are, of course, more important in some industries than some other industries. And when talking about software, patents are always a controversial issue that many people feel that software and patents should not be mixed. But we live in the world where patents do exist, and there are companies who are very aggressive in using those. So you need to decide on the investment side. So are you actually going to be investing into the patents? Are you going to be using them as a weapon against your competitors? Are you going to be using them as a defense, or will you just have a reactive approach so that you don't actually do anything until somebody comes knocking on the door and asking about how about this patent issue that you have? Depends a lot on the industry where you're actually working. Then on the licensing side, of course, this is we're in the software industry, so this is important. Like you know, software is not usually bought; it's usually licensed. So it's a very separate thing from actually buying a physical product to licensing a technology. What's good about that, of course, is that when you are negotiating about the license, you can actually agree on any terms in relation to that. You can agree on the price, you can agree on whatever distribution, whatever rights to do with the software that's being licensed. Maybe the one exception here is on the open source side. So open source licensing is a different thing, and there's actually a separate talk today or tomorrow about open source licensing as well. But open source licensing usually is different in a sense that you might be in a situation where you can't actually negotiate another license from an open source provider. The easy example is that if you would like to have a different license to the Linux kernel, you would have to contact tens of thousands of people, the actual people who own the copyrights, and agree with each and every one of them about what your licensing needs are. And obviously that's impossible. even having those kind of discussions with tens of people might turn out to be totally impossible. So open source licenses are usually something that are not negotiable. So what else do you need to take into account when you're thinking about licensing? So you need to take into account that the product or the service that you are creating, what do you need to license for actually creating that? So kind of internal aspect. And then the other aspect there is that what does your users, what does your customers actually need from the licensing? Do you need to relicense something forward to your customers? And how do you actually manage the balance there? Because it's not straightforward. Like I said, you can always agree on the licensing terms, whatever. So you need to understand also that what rights need to be passed on to your customers so that they can be successful with your products. The third aspect on the licensing side is that you need to secure your future and look at the risk profile and look at the window of opportunity. So if you know that you are building a very highly scaling business model, you need to be sure that the licenses that you're actually getting scale with you. And you need to take into account, for example, what happens if your competitor will acquire the company that you license software from. Do they have the right to actually terminate your license? Can you be sure that you can get you can kind of resupply licenses if you have been agreeing on some distribution scheme, for example? So how do you operate with that? And then, of course, with the same thing to that is the fact that what kind of license do you actually have? Do you have black box license where you actually just get the software in a binary format that you can't cut, you can't touch inside, you can't look inside? There's nothing you can do, versus having the kind of white box version that you can actually look at the source code, you can make changes, you can augment the software yourself. So what's actually needed and how can you agree with that? Because that might have a big effect on you going forward with your own product. Then on the operational side, of course, the productivity equation that we have there might be very familiar to you, but still I think it's very important when considering where to invest and how to go forward. So you could look at the triangle as a kind of a risk assessment. So if you're working on a known problem domain, you have people who know the technology and the tools that you're using, and you have a team that has been working with the tools before, has been working with the problem domain, and has been working with each other. You have an extremely low risk in that particular project. But that's unfortunately unstable situation, because in the end, at least the team will change, no matter what. People will retire at least at some point and go forward. So that's that. And of course, at some point in time, there might be a situation for your company that you will need to attack a new problem domain. And to attack that, you would actually need new technology. And to do that, you would actually need new people that might not actually know either one of the problem domain or the technology. So you might be in a very high-risk situation, which is okay. Business is about taking risks, but then you need to start measuring and seeing that whether you need to invest more into people, more into competence development, or whether you need to change technology. Maybe you need to add some technology, buy something new there to go forward. So how does the operational thing go from there? And then if the special cases of if you're actually creating devices, what's the balance between hardware and software? Do you have the opportunity to look at the total cost of ownership, or are you a bill of materials driven company? We are actually seeing many cases where a company that has a hardware background justifiably, in a sense, starts building their products and first defines their hardware. And because they are a hardware company as such, they are actually pretty good at that, and they can define the lowest possible hardware that you can do the product with. But with the lowest possible hardware, you might squeeze, for example, the memory capacity of the device to such small space that actually developing the software, the cost of the development of the software will be like 3 times or 10 times more expensive. So the fact that you need to have the right balance on the bill of materials versus the actual software investment, and especially if you have a device that you can upgrade, update, how do you build the future for your device going forward? This is a quote that I've seen from a couple of persons in my career, that they say basically that tell me where you invest and I will tell you what your strategy is. I think this is a very good quote. And now, when you're doing the investment decisions and looking at the company, I urge you every now and then to actually look kind of bottom up, that okay, if I'm actually putting money into these things, does it actually reflect what my strategy is? To have this kind of checkpoint that, okay, am I actually doing the right things? Is the window of opportunity aligned with the things? Is my strategic and tactical and operational investments aligned? And do they have a logical path towards the strategy that I'm trying to address? Okay, that was my first 20 minutes of this. I wish you all a productive QtWS Summit. We have some couple of minutes for questions. Any questions? Okay.
About device versus software. So basically, if you sell a device, you cannot upgrade it. There is a different strategy with respect to whatever you have to put inside the device and whatever you have to put inside the software. So you said that if you cut some device hardware capabilities to the device, you may have much higher software expenses. You can constantly upgrade the software remotely, or there is something that you can do with software that you can do with hardware.
Yeah, so the question more or less was, if I understood right, that how to, if you are in the business of actually upgrading your system that you're building, what's the limit on the software versus the hardware, right? Yeah. So of course it depends on what you're doing and what is it that you do. There's of course a limit that you can do with software upgrades, and you should have the kind of planned life cycle when you're thinking on the investment or on the actual hardware versus what do you want to do with the software. But we have seen actually quite some nice things done with Qt that a company has been in a situation where they would have actually had to replace a whole lot of devices, but they have been able to create the features that they needed through software and just upgrading the software on the devices. And that's, of course, those are great success stories in many cases of, at least environmentally, if you start having tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands or even millions of devices out there. But of course there's always a limit at what you can do, and if you're doing some specific measuring equipment, for example, there's a set of sensors that you have in the equipment. There's, you can't do that, upgrade that with software. You can upgrade the analytics part maybe with the software or the user interface or something like that, but not the real contents of the system as a whole. Okay, back there.
What kind of deal you can imagine to be successful between a software company
Well, I think this goes beyond today's session, unfortunately. Let's have this question online. It's, I think, a bit too complex issue for me, at least, to answer now.
One thing I wanted to add is that we see quite a lot of people pick a strategy along the lines of what you described, risks and all that, like, for example, picking Qt to develop with, and then don't really follow through and commit in the sense that they try to keep an abstraction layer so that maybe one day they could migrate away again from Qt, or they don't use the features because, well, what if we want to change our minds 3 years down the road? And by doing that, they basically lose a lot of the benefits. So they make up their mind that Qt is the right solution for them, but then kind of don't really want to take the risk and the commitment of actually following through with that strategy. And then often they rob themselves of many of the benefits because they just want to isolate themselves from their own strategic decisions, basically. And that's often, you know, the strategic thinking is right, but then in the execution, there's too much caution, too much risk thinking, and that kind of removes a lot of the benefits.
Yeah, so I think this is the point what I tried to make with this, that yeah, you need to sometimes take a look back that am I actually doing the right things? Am I following the strategic decisions that I've made before? Yeah, that's true. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. We're on time.